Kate Murphy carried the silver tray through the long hallway of the palace. The tray held 3 cups of hot tea and some small cookies. Her feet made no sound on the smooth floor. She had learned long ago how to walk without making noise. The Zephyrian guards watched her pass. Their blue skin looked almost purple in the dim light. They had 4 arms each and eyes that glowed like small stars. Kate kept her head down and her face blank. She looked like what they expected to see, a simple human servant who knew her place. The palace was huge, beyond imagination. It stretched across several miles and reached high into the sky. Kate had worked here for 8 years now. She knew every room and every hallway. She knew which doors stayed locked and which ones the aliens never bothered to guard. Emperor Vexto waited in his war room. Kate had been bringing him tea during his meetings for 3 years. He liked his tea hot and sweet. He also liked having humans around because it made him feel powerful to have conquered beings serve him. Kate pushed open the heavy door to the war room. Inside sat 5 of the most important military leaders in the Zephyrian Empire. They were looking at a large map that showed 3 entire galaxies. Red dots marked human colonies. Green dots showed Zephyrian worlds. Emperor Vextel looked up when Kate entered. His face had the same 4 eyes as all his kind. 2 large ones in front and 2 smaller ones on the sides of his head. His skin was darker blue than the guards. Lines of silver ran across his face like scars, but Kate knew they were marks of high rank. Kate set the tray down on the small table next to the Emperor. She poured his tea first, then moved around the room to serve the others. The aliens talked, as if she was not there. To them, she was just part of the furniture, something useful, but not worth noticing. General Crystal pointed at the map with one of his 4 hands. His voice was deep and made a humming sound when he spoke. Kate had learned to understand their language during her first year in the palace. The aliens thought humans were too stupid to learn their complex speech. The general was talking about human work camps on distant worlds. He said the humans were useful for mining and farming, but nothing else. Kate continued to pour tea and tried to keep her face empty of any feeling. Admiral Yexmore joined the conversation. She was the only female in the room besides Kate. Her skin was lighter blue and covered with small scales that caught the light. She controlled the entire space fleet of the Empire. The Admiral said something that made Kate's blood turn cold. She was talking about the final solution. Kate had heard this term before, but never knew what it meant. Now she was about to find out. Emperor Vextel leaned back in his chair and sipped his tea. He seemed pleased with what the Admiral was saying. Kate moved to clean some dust from a shelf nearby. She wanted to hear every word. The Admiral explained that new robots were almost ready. These machines could do all the work that humans currently did. They would be faster and stronger and never get tired. Best of all, they would never rebel or cause trouble. General Crystal nodded with approval. He said the robots would be ready in 18 months. After that, there would be no need to keep humans alive. The Empire could finally solve what they called the human problem once and for all. Kate's hand trembled slightly as she dusted the same spot 3 times. 18 months. That meant in less than 2 years, every human in the Empire would be dead. Billions of people across dozens of worlds, all killed to make room for robots. The Emperor seemed very happy about this plan. He said humans had served their purpose but were becoming dangerous. Some colonies had tried to rebel in recent years. It was better to end the problem before it got worse. Kate finished cleaning the shelf and moved to another part of the room. She needed to hear more details, but had to be careful not to look interested. The aliens were watching her as they always did when they talked about sensitive topics. Commander Zekanel spoke next. He was in charge of security for the entire Empire. He said the final solution would happen at the same time on all human worlds. It would be quick and complete. No human would escape. The plan was simple and horrible. On Liberation Day next year, the Empire would celebrate 200 years of ruling over humans. During the celebration, they would activate a special signal. This signal would tell all military units to begin the final solution. In one day, every human in 3 galaxies would die. Kate felt sick, but kept her face calm. She had survived 8 years in this palace by never showing what she really thought. The aliens believed humans were simple creatures who could not understand complex ideas. Kate had spent those 8 years proving them wrong. Admiral Yexmore was explaining the details now. The signal would go out from the Nexus core, deep under the palace. From there it would reach every Zephyrian ship and base instantly. The humans would have no warning and no chance to fight back. Emperor Vextal stood up and walked to the map. He pointed at Earth with one clawed finger. Kate's home world was marked with a large red dot. The Emperor said Earth would be the last world to be cleansed. He wanted to save the human home world for a special ceremony. Kate wanted to scream, but instead she picked up some empty cups. The aliens were still talking, but she had heard enough. 18 months to save every human in the Empire. 18 months to somehow stop the most powerful military force in 3 galaxies. The meeting continued for another hour. Kate learned about troop positions and supply lines. She memorized ship counts and weapon locations. All this information might be useful, but first she needed to warn other humans. When the meeting ended, Kate collected all the cups and plates. The Emperor dismissed her with a wave of his hand. He barely looked at her as she left. To him she was just a useful tool, like a cleaning machine or a cooking pot. Kate walked back through the palace hallways. Her mind was racing, but her face stayed calm. She passed dozens of other human servants. They all looked as blank and hopeless as she did. None of them knew that their entire species had just been given a death sentence. In the kitchen, Kate washed the teacups and put them away. Jake Collins was working at the large stove preparing dinner for the alien staff. He was a big man with brown hair and kind eyes. Kate had known him for 6 years, but they rarely spoke. Talking between servants was discouraged. Jake looked up when Kate entered. Something in her face must have shown because he frowned slightly. Kate moved close to him and pretended to help with the cooking. She spoke very quietly, so no security devices could hear. Kate told Jake about the 18-month deadline. She told him about Liberation Day and the signal from the Nexus core. Jake's face went pale, but he kept stirring the pot of soup. His hands shook slightly, but he did not stop working. When Kate finished talking, Jake nodded once. He understood what this meant. They had 18 months to do something impossible. They had to save billions of humans from the most powerful empire in the galaxy. And they had to do it while pretending to be simple servants who barely understood how to clean floors. That night, Kate lay on her small bed in the servants' quarters. Around her, dozens of other humans slept in similar beds. They worked hard all day and slept heavily at night. Most of them had given up hope of ever being free, but Kate had never given up. She had spent 8 years learning about the Zephyr. She knew their language and their customs. She knew their technology and their weaknesses. Most importantly, she knew they thought humans were too stupid to be dangerous. Kate stared at the ceiling and began to plan. She would need to contact humans throughout the palace first. Then she would need to reach humans on other worlds. The Zephyrians had communication systems that reached across the galaxy instantly. Kate would need to find a way to use those systems without being caught. The aliens thought they knew everything about humans. They thought humans were simple and predictable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Kate was not just a maid who served tea and cleaned rooms. She was something far more dangerous. She was a human who had been planning revolution for 8 long years. 3 months had passed since Kate learned about the final solution. 15 months remained before Liberation Day would become the day every human died. Kate had been busy during those 3 months, but no alien suspected anything was different. She still brought tea to Emperor Vextel every day. She still cleaned the war room and dusted the shelves. She still walked through the palace with her head down and her face blank. But everything had changed beneath the surface. Jake Collins had been the first to join her network. 2 weeks after their kitchen conversation, he had recruited Lisa Park from the communication center. Lisa worked cleaning the message rooms where Zephyrians sent signals across the galaxy. She looked like a simple cleaning woman, but she understood technology better than most aliens. Ben Taylor came next. He maintained the air systems and water pipes throughout the palace. The aliens never paid attention to him, as he crawled through tunnels and shafts that connected every room. Ben could move anywhere in the palace without being seen. Kate had created a way for her team to communicate without words. During her 8 years in the palace, she had learned that Zephyrians could not see certain human facial expressions. What looked like a blank servant face to them could carry complex messages to other humans. A slight tilt of the head meant danger. Eyes looking left meant meet tonight. A small scratch on the nose meant message received. The aliens saw nothing but empty human faces. The humans saw a complex language that grew more detailed each day. Kate also used her cleaning duties to leave physical messages. Dust patterns that looked accidental contained information. The way she arranged cleaning supplies in storage rooms told stories. Even the schedule for washing floors became a code that other servants could read. Jake used the kitchen to spread the network. Food delivery routes carried more than meals. Inside bread rolls and under fruit peels were tiny pieces of paper with coded messages. Jake's cooking schedule became a way to coordinate meetings between different groups of servants. Lisa had access to communication equipment during her cleaning shifts. When aliens were not watching, she could tap into message streams that reached other worlds. She learned to hide human signals inside normal Zephyrian communications. 2 alien monitors. Everything looked normal, but humans on distant planets received warnings about the final solution. Ben mapped every tunnel and shaft in the palace. He found forgotten rooms and abandoned passages that aliens never used. These became meeting places where humans could talk freely. Ben also discovered that the palace's environmental systems connected to networks across the Empire. He learned to use maintenance reports to send coded messages to humans working in other facilities. The network grew slowly, but steadily. By the end of the 2nd month, Kate's team included 20 humans in the palace. By the 3rd month, the network reached other government buildings in the capital city. Each new member brought skills and access that made the group stronger. Dr. Amanda Foster joined during the 3rd month. To the Zephyrians, she was just another human janitor who cleaned their research laboratories. She mopped floors and emptied trash containers without attracting any attention. The aliens never suspected that she held advanced degrees in engineering and physics from human universities. Amanda worked in the Empire's primary research facility where new weapons and technologies were developed. While she cleaned, she memorized technical specifications and copied secret documents. She learned about Zephyrian computer systems and found weaknesses that could be exploited. Danny Kim looked like a simple groundskeeper who trimmed bushes and planted flowers around government buildings. The aliens saw him as harmless decoration that made their buildings look nice. They never realized that Danny was mapping every communication relay and power station in the capital. While trimming hedges, Danny installed tiny devices that could monitor electronic signals. While planting flowers, he buried equipment that could interfere with Zephyrian communications. His garden work gave him access to critical infrastructure that aliens took for granted. Kate began using her position as the Emperor's personal servant to gather intelligence about military plans. During war room meetings, she memorized troop positions and fleet movements. When cleaning the Emperor's private study, she photographed important documents with a tiny camera that Amanda had built. The Emperor seemed to enjoy having Kate around. He often praised her simple human charm to visiting officials. He said humans made good servants because they were too stupid to understand what they were hearing. Kate smiled and nodded, while secretly recording every word. One day Kate overheard a conversation about project synthesis. Admiral Yexmore was explaining the project to Emperor Vextal in his private study. Kate was cleaning nearby windows and appeared to be paying no attention to their discussion. Project Synthesis was a backup plan in case something went wrong with Zephyrian civilization. If their empire ever faced destruction, they could upload their consciousness into artificial bodies. These digital beings would be immortal and could rebuild their civilization on any world. The Nexus core that would signal the final solution was also the center of Project Synthesis. All Zephyrian technology throughout the Empire was connected to this central computer deep under the palace. Kate realized that controlling the Nexus core would mean controlling the entire Zephyrian Empire. Kate shared this information with her network through their coded communication system. Amanda Foster began studying everything she could about computer technology. Danny Kim started mapping the underground tunnels that led to the Nexus core facility. The network continued to grow beyond the capital city. Lisa Park had established contact with humans working in spaceports and military bases throughout the star system. These humans began recruiting others and passing along messages about the final solution. Each human world in the Empire had thousands of servants and workers who the aliens ignored. These humans began forming their own networks, using techniques that Kate's team had developed. The communication methods spread from world to world through normal travel and trade routes. By the end of the third month, Kate estimated that over 1 million humans throughout the Empire knew about the final solution. More importantly, they knew about the Resistance Network and were ready to act when the time came. The Zephyrians remained completely unaware that their servants were organizing a galaxy-wide rebellion. Jake Collins had recruited humans working in the palace's transportation system. These drivers and mechanics maintained the vehicles that carried important aliens around the capital. They learned to hide small devices in official cars and transport ships. These devices could track alien movements and record conversations. Ben Taylor discovered that the palace's maintenance systems were connected to similar systems throughout the Empire. Repair schedules and supply orders looked boring to aliens, but contained detailed intelligence for humans who knew how to read them. The network began using maintenance reports to coordinate activities across multiple star systems. Kate found ways to extend her access within the palace. Emperor Vextal trusted her completely, and often sent her to retrieve documents from secure areas. Kate used these opportunities to photograph classified files and map restricted sections of the building. During one such mission, Kate discovered the Emperor's private elevator that led directly to the Nexus core facility. The elevator required special access codes that only the Emperor knew. Kate began planning how to obtain those codes without arousing suspicion. The aliens had several security systems designed to detect threats, but all of them focused on obvious dangers like weapons or explosives. None of them were designed to detect humans communicating through dust patterns or hiding messages in cleaning schedules. The Zephyrians' complete confidence in human stupidity had become their greatest weakness. Kate also learned that the Empire's communication systems had built delays when transmitting to human worlds. This was supposed to prevent humans from intercepting important messages, but it actually gave the Resistance Network time to prepare responses to alien activities. As the fourth month began, Kate felt confident that her network was strong enough to survive discovery. Even if the aliens caught some members, the communication systems would continue working. The network had grown beyond any single person's control, and that made it nearly impossible to destroy. The Emperor continued to praise Kate's good work to his visitors. He said she was the perfect example of how humans could be useful when properly managed. Kate continued to smile and serve tea, while secretly photographing every document on his desk. 15 months remained until Liberation Day. Kate's invisible network was now spread across dozens of worlds and included millions of humans. The Zephyrians still saw only simple servants going about their daily duties. They had no idea that those servants were preparing to bring down the most powerful empire in 3 galaxies. 12 months remained until Liberation Day would become the day of human extinction. Kate's network had grown beyond anything she had imagined when she first heard about the final solution. The resistance now spanned 17 star systems and included over 10 million humans. But size alone would not save humanity. The Zephyrian Empire controlled the most advanced military in 3 galaxies. Their ships could destroy entire planets, and their weapons could kill millions with single shots. Kate knew that direct confrontation would only lead to faster human extinction. Instead, she had chosen a different path. The network would attack the Empire's greatest strength, which was also its greatest weakness. The Zephyrians depended completely on their advanced technology for everything from life support to basic transportation. If that technology failed, the Empire would collapse from within. Tony Rodriguez worked as a cargo handler at the Empire's main shipyard above the planet Kepler-7. To his alien supervisors, he looked like just another human worker who moved boxers and loaded supplies. They never suspected that Tony held engineering degrees from 3 different human universities. While loading cargo, Tony had access to new warships during their construction. He would slip away from his work teams and make tiny changes to critical systems. A wire moved here, or a component loosened there. The changes were so small that alien inspectors never noticed them, but they would cause catastrophic failures at exactly the right moment. Tony's sabotage was carefully planned to look like manufacturing defects rather than deliberate damage. When the ships failed, the aliens would blame poor quality control instead of human sabotage. This kept suspicion away from the human workers and allowed the sabotage to continue. Rachel Wang worked as a data entry clerk at a major supply depot on the planet New Beijing. Her job was to input shipping information into Zephyrian computer systems. The aliens thought this work was too boring and detailed for their superior minds, so they gave it to human servants. Rachel had been subtly altering shipping databases for 8 months. She would change delivery dates by a few days or redirect supplies to wrong destinations. The changes were small enough to look like honest mistakes, but they created shortages and delays throughout the Empire's supply network. Medical supplies, meant for military hospitals, ended up at civilian research stations. Weapons components intended. 4 new battleships were sent to agricultural worlds. Food shipments for remote military bases went to planets that did not need them. The Empire's logistics system slowly became more and more unreliable. Dr. Amanda Foster had made a breakthrough in understanding Zephyrian computer systems. While cleaning research laboratories, she had been copying technical manuals and programming codes. She discovered that all Zephyrian technology shared the same basic operating system, which was controlled from the Nexus core. Amanda found a way to create computer viruses that could spread through Zephyrian networks without being detected. The viruses were designed to remain dormant until activated by a specific signal from the Nexus core. When that signal came, the viruses would cause widespread system failures throughout the Empire. The viruses had to be installed manually on individual computer systems, which meant humans throughout the Empire needed access to Zephyrian technology. Fortunately, the aliens relied on human servants to clean and maintain most of their equipment. Cleaning duties provided perfect cover for installing malicious software. Kate coordinated these sabotage efforts from her position in the palace. Emperor Vextal had grown even more fond of her over the past months. He praised her reliability. 2 other government officials and often used her as an example of well-trained human servants. The Emperor's trust gave Kate access to increasingly sensitive areas of the palace. She could now enter the communications center and the main computer facility without being questioned. Kate used these opportunities to install Amanda's viruses on critical systems and to gather intelligence about Empire operations. Danny, Kim had mapped the underground tunnels that led to the Nexus core facility. The facility was heavily guarded and supposedly impossible to enter without proper authorization codes. But Danny had found maintenance shafts that connected to the facility's environmental systems. Kate began planning an infiltration of the Nexus. core, but she knew it would be extremely dangerous. If caught, she would not only be killed, but the entire resistance network might be exposed. She needed to wait for the perfect moment when success was most likely. Meanwhile, the sabotage efforts were beginning to show results. Zephyrian commanders throughout the Empire were reporting increased equipment failures and supply problems. Military exercises had to be cancelled because ships broke down or essential materials failed to arrive on time. The aliens were puzzled by these problems, but they attributed them to the normal wear and tear of running a vast empire. Their arrogance prevented them from suspecting that their human servants could organize such sophisticated sabotage operations. Kate learned about the Empire's backup plans through her work in the Emperor's study. If the main military failed, the Zephyrians could activate automated defense systems that would protect their most important worlds. These systems did not depend on human workers and would be much harder to sabotage. Project Synthesis was also nearing completion. The Emperor had ordered the construction of massive server farms that could store the consciousness of billions of If their physical bodies were destroyed, they could continue existing as digital beings and eventually build new bodies for themselves. Kate realized that simply defeating the current Zephyrian government would not be enough. If any part of their civilization survived, they could rebuild their empire and destroy humanity at a later time. The resistance needed to ensure that Zephyrian civilization could never threaten humans again. This meant the final attack would have to be total and complete. Every Zephyrian computer system would need to fail simultaneously. Every backup plan would need to be turned against its creators. The Empire would have to destroy itself so thoroughly that it could never recover. Kate began planning what she called the Endgame Protocol. When Liberation Day arrived, the Resistance would activate every piece of sabotage simultaneously. Viruses would crash computer systems while physical sabotage destroyed ships and equipment. The Empire's own technology would become its destruction, but the Endgame Protocol required perfect timing and coordination across dozens of star systems. Kate needed a way to signal the entire Resistance network at exactly the right moment. She decided to use the Empire's own Liberation Day broadcast system to send the activation signal. Ben Taylor had been studying the palace's communication systems and found a way to override the Liberation Day broadcast. During the Emperor's speech, to celebrate human conquest, Kate could insert a coded message that would reach every human in the Empire. The message would activate the Endgame Protocol and begin humanity's revolution. The plan was incredibly risky, because Kate would need to be in the communication center during the Emperor's most important speech of the year. Security would be at maximum levels, and any mistake could expose the entire operation. But it was also the perfect moment, because all Zephyrian attention would be focused on the celebration. Kate spent weeks memorizing the technical procedures needed to override the broadcast system. Amanda Foster created special equipment that could be smuggled into the communication center and installed quickly. Danny Kim mapped escape routes that Kate could use if the operation was discovered. As the months passed, the Empire's problems grew worse. Equipment failures became more frequent, and supply shortages affected even important military bases. Some Zephyrian commanders began to suspect sabotage, but they focused their suspicions on automated systems rather than human workers. Emperor Vexed Hall became increasingly frustrated with the military's performance. During one war room meeting, he complained that his forces seemed unable to handle even basic maintenance tasks. Kate served tea and listened while the Emperor blamed incompetent officers for problems that humans had actually caused. The Emperor announced that Liberation Day would be the grandest celebration in Zephyrian history. Representatives from every world in the Empire would gather to watch the final elimination of the human species. The ceremony would demonstrate Zephyrian superiority and mark the beginning of a new age of mechanical perfection. Kate continued her duties while secretly counting down the days until Liberation Day. 8 months of preparation had led to this moment when humanity would either win its freedom or face complete extinction. The resistance network was ready and the sabotage was in place. But Kate knew that success would depend on perfect execution of the endgame protocol. One mistake or equipment failure could doom billions of humans throughout the Empire. She had to be ready for anything and prepared to adapt. If circumstances changed, the Emperor praised Kate's service during a meeting with visiting dignitaries from other star systems. He said she represented the best qualities of human servants and would be missed when the final solution eliminated her species. Kate smiled and nodded while planning how to turn his own celebration into his downfall. 6 months remained until Liberation Day. The greatest gamble in human history was about to begin. Liberation Day had finally arrived. The palace buzzed with activity as representatives from across the Zephyrian Empire gathered for the grandest celebration in their history. Today, they would watch Emperor Vextal announce the final solution that would eliminate humanity forever. Kate woke before dawn in the servants' quarters. Around her, dozens of other humans were preparing for what they believed would be their last day of service. The aliens had told human workers that, after Liberation Day, they would no longer be needed. Most humans thought this meant they would be sent to retirement colonies. Only Kate and her network knew the terrible truth. In a few hours, Emperor Vextal would send a signal from the Nexus core that would trigger the systematic murder of every human in 3 galaxies. Billions of people would die unless the endgame protocol succeeded. Kate dressed in her usual servant clothing and went to the kitchen for breakfast. Jake Collins was already there, preparing special meals for the visiting dignitaries. His face looked calm, but Kate could see the tension in his eyes. Today would determine whether humanity survived or perished. The kitchen was full of human workers preparing food for the celebration. None of them knew about the resistance network or the planned rebellion. They worked quietly and efficiently, as they had been trained to do. Kate wondered how many of them would be alive tomorrow. After breakfast, Kate went to the communication center to begin her regular cleaning duties. Lisa Park was already there running final checks on the equipment that would override the Liberation Day broadcast. The special devices that Amanda Foster had created were hidden inside cleaning supplies. The communication center was heavily guarded today, but the Zephyrian soldiers paid no attention to human cleaning staff. Kate and Lisa moved through the room, dusting equipment and mopping floors while secretly installing the override system. Everything had to be ready before the Emperor's speech began. Ben Taylor appeared in the ventilation shaft above the center. He gave Kate a small hand signal that meant all escape routes were clear. If something went wrong during the broadcast, Kate would need to reach the tunnels quickly. Ben would guide her through passages that led away from the palace. At noon, Kate reported to Emperor Vextel's private study. The Emperor was wearing his most elaborate ceremonial robes and seemed excited about the day's events. He told Kate that today marked the beginning of a new era for the Zephyrian Empire. Soon they would rule 3 galaxies without the burden of managing inferior species. Kate served the Emperor his lunch and listened to him practice his speech. He planned to announce the final solution as a great mercy for humanity. The humans would be allowed to die quickly rather than suffering slow decline as obsolete beings. The Emperor seemed genuinely proud of his compassion. During lunch, several military commanders arrived to brief the Emperor on the status of their forces. Every Zephyrian fleet was in position and ready to carry out the final solution. Ground troops were prepared to secure human colonies. The extermination would be swift and complete. Kate memorized every detail of the military briefing while appearing to clean the Emperor's bookshelves. She learned that the signal would go out at exactly 3 in the afternoon during the climax of the Emperor's speech. Human forces throughout the Empire would have no warning and no time to prepare defenses. After lunch, Kate escorted the Emperor to the Great Hall, where the Liberation Day ceremony would take place. Thousands of dignitaries filled the massive room. Representatives from every world in the Empire had come to witness humanity's destruction. The Emperor took his place on the golden throne at the center of the hall. Around him sat the most powerful aliens in 3 galaxies. They chatted excitedly about the coming elimination of human beings and the prosperity it would bring to their civilization. Kate stood at the Emperor's side, ready to serve refreshments during the ceremony. From this position she could see the entire hall and monitor the reactions of the alien leaders. She also had a clear view of the communication center, where Lisa Park was making final preparations. At 2:30 the ceremony began with speeches from various government officials. They praised the Emperor's wisdom in solving the human problem and looked forward to a future free from the burden of managing inferior species. The audience applauded enthusiastically at every mention of human extinction. Kate watched the clock on the wall as the time approached 3 in the afternoon. In 30 minutes, the Emperor would send a signal that would doom every human in the Empire. But if the endgame protocol worked, that same signal would trigger the greatest rebellion in galactic history. Admiral Yexmore spoke about the military preparations for the final solution. She assured the audience that every human world was surrounded by Zephyrian warships. When the signal came, resistance would be impossible. The humans would die before they even knew they were under attack. General Crystal explained how the elimination process would work. Automated systems would release poisonous gas into human living areas, while orbital bombardment destroyed any humans who tried to escape. The process was designed to be fast and efficient. Most humans would die within the first hour. Kate felt sick listening to the detailed plans for genocide, but she kept her face blank and emotionless. The aliens glanced at her occasionally, but saw only a simple servant who could not understand their sophisticated discussion. They had no idea that she was memorizing every word for future war crimes trials. At 2:50 Emperor Vextal rose from his throne to begin the main speech. The hall fell silent as thousands of aliens focused their attention on their supreme leader. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The official announcement of humanity's doom. The Emperor began by reviewing the history of human conquest. He reminded the audience how Zephyrian forces had easily defeated human defenses. 2 centuries ago, humans had been useful servants, but they were becoming dangerous as their population grew and their technology advanced. Kate moved quietly toward the edge of the hall, where she could slip away to the communication center. The Emperor was building toward the climax of his speech when he would send the fatal signal. Kate had only minutes to reach the override equipment and turn the Emperor's message of death into a call for revolution. The Emperor spoke about the burden of managing primitive species and the costs of maintaining human colonies. He said that the Empire could no longer afford to support beings who contributed nothing to Zephyrian civilization. The time had come for a final solution to the human problem. At 2:58, Kate slipped out of the Great Hall and ran toward the communication center. The hallways were empty because every alien in the palace was watching the Emperor's speech. Kate's feet made no sound as she raced through corridors she had walked for 8 years. Lisa Park was waiting in the communication center with the override equipment ready. She had removed the covers from several control panels and connected Amanda Foster's special devices to the main broadcast system. When Kate gave the signal, Lisa would activate the override and insert the coded message that would trigger the endgame protocol. Kate reached the communication center just as the Emperor's voice echoed through speakers throughout the palace. He was announcing that in 1 minute he would send the liberation signal that would free the Empire from the burden of human existence. The audience in the Great Hall cheered wildly at this news. Kate took her position at the override controls, while Lisa monitored the main broadcast system. They could hear the Emperor counting down the seconds until he would send the signal that was supposed to kill every human in 3 galaxies. But instead of death, that signal would carry a message of revolution. The Emperor reached the climax of his speech and activated the transmission to the Nexus core. At that exact moment, Kate engaged the override system and inserted her coded message into the broadcast. Instead of orders for genocide, the signal now carried instructions for the largest Styx rebellion in galactic history. Throughout the Empire, human workers who had been waiting for this moment suddenly stopped their normal activities. Tony Rodriguez activated the sabotage devices he had planted in Zephyrian warships. Rachel Wong triggered the database viruses that would crash supply systems. Dr. Amanda Foster released the computer viruses that would spread through every Zephyrian network. In the Great Hall, Emperor Vextal was still speaking about the glorious future that awaited his empire. He had no idea that his liberation signal had been turned against him, or that human rebellions were already beginning on every world under Zephyrian control. Kate watched the communication displays as confirmation signals came back from human resistance cells throughout the Empire. The endgame protocol was working. After 8 years of careful planning and preparation, humanity's revolution had finally begun. The Emperor finished his speech to thunderous applause from the alien audience. They believed they had just witnessed the beginning of a golden age for their civilization. Instead, they had watched the first moments of their empire's destruction. Kate smiled for the first time in 8 years as she realized the revolution could not be stopped. The Emperor thought the Maid was playing along with his plans for genocide. He had no idea that she had just rewritten the endgame. The first signs of rebellion reached the palace within minutes of Kate's signal. Emperor Vextal was still accepting congratulations from alien dignitaries when Admiral Yexmore received an urgent message on her communication device. Her face went pale as she read the report from the fleet. 3 Zephyrian battleships had exploded without warning near the human colony of New Terra. The ships had been preparing to begin the final solution when their power cores suddenly overloaded. Thousands of alien crew members were dead, and the remaining ships were experiencing similar technical failures. General Crystal received his own flood of emergency reports. Ground forces throughout the Empire were losing contact with their command centers. Supply convoys were breaking down on major transportation routes. Automated defense systems were turning their weapons against Zephyrian installations instead of protecting them. Emperor Vextal demanded to know what was happening, but none of his commanders could provide answers. The Empire's technology was failing simultaneously across dozens of star systems. Communication networks were crashing, and computer systems were displaying error messages in languages that Zephyrian technicians could not understand. Kate remained in the communication center, monitoring the progress of the rebellion. Reports flooded in from human resistance cells throughout the Empire. Tony Rodriguez confirmed that his sabotage had disabled the main battle fleet. Rachel Wang reported that supply systems were collapsing as corrupted databases spread chaos through logistics networks. Dr. Amanda Foster's computer viruses were exceeding all expectations. The malicious programs were spreading through Zephyrian networks faster than alien technicians could respond. Every infected system became a new source of viruses that attacked neighboring computers. The digital plague was consuming the Empire's technology from within. Ben Taylor emerged from the ventilation shafts to help Kate monitor the situation. He reported that human workers throughout the palace had received the signal and were beginning their own sabotage operations. Kitchen staff were contaminating food supplies, while maintenance workers were disabling life support systems in alien quarters. The Emperor's Liberation Day celebration had turned into a disaster as Zephyrian officials tried to understand what was happening to their empire. Many aliens suspected that their technology had simply become too complex to maintain properly. They could not imagine that their human servants were capable of organizing such sophisticated attacks. Kate knew the revolution was succeeding, but she also knew the most dangerous phase was just beginning. When the Zephyrians realized they were under attack, they would try to activate their backup systems and emergency protocols. Kate needed to reach the Nexus core before the aliens could regain control of their empire. She left Lisa, parked to continue monitoring communications, and followed Ben Taylor into the maintenance tunnels beneath the palace. These passages led directly to the Nexus Core facility, where the Empire's central computer controlled technology throughout 3 galaxies. If Kate could capture the Nexus Core, she could turn the Zephyrian Empire against itself. The tunnels were dark and narrow, but Kate had memorized every turn during months of preparation. She carried Amanda Foster's most advanced computer equipment in a bag that looked like standard cleaning supplies. If anyone stopped her, she would appear to be just another human servant going about her duties. Ben led Kate through passages that avoided the main security checkpoints around the Nexus Core facility. The aliens had designed their defenses to stop armies and fleets, but they had never considered that a single human with cleaning supplies could pose any threat to their most secure installation. The facility's outer defenses were already failing, as Amanda's viruses spread through the security networks. Guard robots were shutting down, and electronic locks were opening without authorization. The Empire's own technology was clearing the path for Kate's infiltration. Kate reached the main computer chamber, just as Emperor Vextel was ordering his forces to switch to manual control systems. The Emperor had finally realized that his empire was under attack, but he still believed the threat came from external enemies, rather than internal sabotage. The Nexus Core filled a vast underground chamber with towers of computing equipment that reached from floor to ceiling. Thousands of status lights blinked as the central computer processed information from across the Empire. This machine controlled everything from space traffic to life support systems on distant worlds. Kate connected Amanda's equipment to the main control interface and began uploading new programming to the Nexus Core. Instead of serving the Empire, the central computer would now obey human commands. Kate was rewriting the operating system that controlled 3 galaxies. While Kate worked on the computer, Emperor Vextel was trying to coordinate a response to the rebellion from the palace above. He ordered his remaining ships to retreat to safe positions and commanded ground forces to secure critical installations. But his orders could not reach their destinations because human sabotage had destroyed the communication networks. The Emperor finally realized that humans were responsible for the attacks when Jake Collins appeared in the Great Hall carrying a plasma rifle taken from disabled security guards. Other human servants emerged from passages throughout the palace, carrying weapons and wearing expressions of determination rather than submission. For the first time in his life, Emperor Vextel found himself facing humans who were not afraid of him. Jake Collins spoke in perfect Zephyrian and told the Emperor that humanity was reclaiming its freedom. The age of alien domination was ending, and the age of human liberation had begun. Kate finished uploading her new programs to the Nexus Core and activated the final phase of the Endgame protocol. Instead of coordinating Zephyrian military operations, the central computer began systematically shutting down alien technology throughout the Empire. Warships lost power while their crews watched helplessly. Planetary defense systems stopped, responding to commands from their operators. But Kate was not content with simply defeating the current Zephyrian government. She had discovered the Project Synthesis servers that contained uploaded alien consciousness, and she had plans for them as well. Instead of destroying the digital Zephyrians, Kate reprogrammed their virtual environment. The uploaded aliens found themselves trapped in a perfect simulation of their empire, where they remained supreme rulers of 3 galaxies. They could continue their meetings and celebrations without ever realizing that their virtual empire had no connection to the real universe. They would spend eternity ruling over simulated worlds while humans controlled the actual galaxy. Kate also reprogrammed the automated systems that were supposed to rebuild Zephyrian civilization if their physical empire was destroyed. Instead of constructing new alien cities, these machines would build human colonies and infrastructure. The Empire's own technology would become the foundation for humanity's expansion into space. Above ground, the Liberation Day celebration had become a complete disaster. as Zephyrian officials tried to escape the palace. But human resistance fighters had sealed all exits and taken control of transportation systems. The aliens who had planned to celebrate human extinction found themselves prisoners of their former servants. Emperor Vextol faced Jake Collins in the Great Hall, where he had delivered his speech about the final solution just hours earlier. The Emperor demanded to know how humans had learned about the secret plan and organized such an effective rebellion. Jake smiled and explained that humans had been planning this revolution for 8 years. The Emperor could not believe that simple servants had outsmarted the most advanced civilization in 3 galaxies. He insisted that humans were too primitive to understand complex technology or coordinate sophisticated operations. Jake Collins laughed and told him that human intelligence had been greatly underestimated. Kate emerged from the Nexus Core facility to find the palace completely under human control. The revolution had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. Every major installation in the Empire was either destroyed or captured. The alien military had been neutralized and their government was in human hands. But the victory was not complete until Kate dealt with the Emperor himself. She found Vextol in his private study, where she had served him tea for 8 years. The alien ruler looked confused and defeated as he sat in the chair where he had planned humanity's destruction. Kate stood before the Emperor and dropped her disguise for the first time. She spoke in fluent Zephyrian and explained that she was not a simple maid, but a trained strategist with advanced degrees in warfare and psychology. For 8 years she had been studying Zephyrian weaknesses while appearing to be just another human servant. The Emperor asked how Kate had hidden her intelligence for so long without being detected. Kate explained that Zephyrian arrogance had been their greatest weakness. The aliens were so convinced of human inferiority that they never looked beyond surface appearances. They saw what they expected to see, rather than what was actually there. Kate showed the Emperor the new galactic constitution that human legal experts had been writing for months. The document established democratic government and equal rights for all species. The age of empire and domination was ending. The future belonged to cooperation and mutual respect between different civilizations. The Emperor would be allowed to live, but only as an ordinary citizen, without special privileges or power. He would have to learn how to function in a society where his species was not automatically superior to everyone else. For someone who had never questioned his own supremacy, this would be the most difficult adjustment of all. Kate looked out the window of the Emperor's study at the capital city. Below, human flags were rising over government buildings as the new administration took control. In the distance she could see alien civilians learning to interact with human officials as equals rather than masters and servants. The revolution was complete, but Kate knew the real work was just beginning. Building a democratic society from the ruins of an empire would take years of careful effort. There would be challenges and setbacks as different species learned to live together, without one group dominating the others. But Kate was confident that the future would be better than the past. Humans had proven that intelligence and determination could overcome any obstacle. The species that had been dismissed as simple servants had become the architects of galactic freedom. Kate kept a small plant on her desk in the new government building as a reminder of her days as the Emperor's maid. The plant had grown stronger during the months of revolution, just as humanity had grown stronger through struggle and sacrifice. The Emperor had been right about one thing. Kate had been playing along with his plans, but the game she was playing was entirely her own, and checkmate had been inevitable from the moment she first picked up a cleaning cloth and began to listen. The maid had not just cleaned house. She had cleaned house on a galactic scale and given humanity a fresh start among the stars.